Maybe young Barnes did not know it at the time, but his bulldog determination, his persistence in standing back of a single desire, was destined to mow down all opposition and bring him the opportunity he was seeking. I'll share with you where this quote comes from in just a few minutes, but first I want to talk about what I think my takeaways are from behind this quote. And we're talking about Edison Barnes, who his goal, his desire was to work alongside Thomas Edison, one of the greatest inventors of our time, and all the odds were stacked against him. I'll read you something else. This is a quote from Thomas Edison describing his first meeting with Edwin Barnes, and he says, "He stood there before me looking like an ordinary tramp, but there was something in the expression on his face which conveyed the impression that he was determined to get what he had come after. I had learned from years of experience with men that when a man really desires a thing so deeply that he is willing to stake his entire future on a single turn of the wheel in order to get it, he is sure to win. Barnes had no money to begin with, he had but little education, he had no influence, but he did have initiative, faith, and the will to win. With these intangible forces, he made himself the number one man with the greatest inventor who ever lives." So that last part obviously wasn't Edison talking about himself. But again, this is a man who had no resources. Everything was stacked against him. But what he did have going for him was that intense desire, that extreme desire to accomplish what he wanted to. And when I read that, I'm reminded of when I first started making videos. And I loved making videos so much. The desire to do it was intense, so much so that, when I was in my 30s and I was starting out doing this, I would get up at 4 o'clock in the morning so I could record a video or two before heading off to go see clients, because in those days I would still go see clients in person. That's how I paid the bills while I was working on producing this content. And the funny thing is, I didn't really know where any of it was going. I had no idea what this was going to do. I just knew that I loved to do it, and I just wanted to keep doing it. And eventually that evolved to, if I really wanted to fast forward to where I'm at today, to where even today now, my single desire, my most intense desire, is to be able to spend all of my time, all day, every day, doing nothing but producing videos and the content that goes with that, such as the written form, of course. So here's the thing, though. One of the things that Edison Barnes didn't do that's referenced in the book where this comes from is Think and Grow Rich. One of the things he didn't do is he didn't tell anybody what his plan was. He had the desire, he just pulled whatever resources he could to get on a train or whatever he took to get to New Jersey where Edison was, and showed up at his doorstep. Okay? And probably that was maybe the smartest thing he did, because if he had told other people what he wanted to do, they all would have told him he was crazy, and they likely might have talked him out of it. And even if they didn't, he would have gone with a lot of opposition, and it could only have worked against him. Let's put it that way. If he had taken time to share what his intentions were with even his closest friends and family, and as the story goes, he didn't tell anybody. Vibe in private is the phrase I keep reading. When you really want to do something, when you really have the desire to do something, you don't talk about it. You just do it. Right? And when you start learning to, think along those lines and doing things on this basis, that's when you start to realize, or where you'll eventually learn if you stick with this long enough, as I have, that nothing is impossible. You might think it's impossible. He thought it was impossible. He didn't go in there and get a job working right alongside Thomas Edison. He actually started at the ground floor, got a job, and worked there, seemingly going nowhere for years, and then suddenly the opportunity presented itself. But he was still singular in his focus and desire. His intention was not to stay working in the lower ranks of Edison's company. His intention was to work as his number 2 guy, and eventually he got there. And when it happened quickly. But it happened after several years of working at the ground floor until that opportunity struck. And if you want to know all the details, get the book. If you haven't, let's put it this way, many of you have probably read the book and probably still don't remember anything of what I'm talking about from the book, which means, if anything, it's time to go back and do what I'm doing now, which is reread, study the book, and take notes so that next time you'll remember. After I've gone to these lengths, especially talking about it, thinking about it, writing about it, you can bet your butt I'm not going to forget these lessons, right? Now, if Edwin Barnes could achieve his dream, so can you. I'm guessing most likely if you're watching this, if you have a computer and you're on the internet in this day and age and you're following me, you probably are already a few steps up compared to where Edison Barnes was when he went to, I keep saying Edison Barnes, Edwin Barnes was working with Thomas Edison, right? Edison, Edwin. Anyway, you get the idea. You're probably already a few legs up from where Edwin Barnes was when he first went to seek out to work with Thomas Edison, right? And what some of us are lacking in terms of maybe why we're not where we'd like to be, if that's your situation, what we may be lacking, what we were likely lacking, is that singleness of desire, that singleness of purpose. This is the one thing I want to do more than anything else I want to do. When I figured out what that was for me and I tripled down on it, all of a sudden I saw, it was like I was rocketed into, a fast direction where I was finally seeing everything come together the way I'd wanted to for years. And it seemed like it happened overnight, but it was anything but overnight. But it's that singleness of purpose that if you can get focused on that and write this out, and I'm talking about rolling up whatever you think it is, because most of us are likely thinking of it at a fairly granular level. Roll that up. Roll it up to a high level. High level. What do you want your life to look like? What do you want to be doing? How do you want to be making your money? Do you want to keep trading your time for money? Probably not. You probably want to build up some form of more residual, more passive income so you don't have to keep showing up. You want to build income streams based on the fact that money comes in no matter where you are, no matter what you're doing, and whether or not you are working, right? That's the ultimate goal. And that's why a lot of the stuff I read now talks about the fact that if you're working in a 9-to-5 job, you're working to build someone else's dream. You're working to create someone else's passive income. Think about that. It's not an easy pill to swallow, especially if you're working a 9-to-5. But the more you think about it, the more you'll probably realize that it's true. So you've got a simple task ahead of you that I want to lay out for you as I wrap up this video. What's the one thing you desire more than anything else you desire? And again, I'll qualify that by saying you're going to roll that up to the highest possible level. In my case, very, very high level, I want to spend all day, every day producing content and doing nothing but. I don't want to, and then I can dive in a little deeper to clarify what that picture looks like for myself. It's not for anybody else, but I don't want to have Zoom calls scheduled with clients. I don't want to have any of that. I don't want to have deadlines. I just want to wake up and have my computer open and be focused and have the opportunities wide open. I can write whatever I want today. I can record whatever I want today, right? That's just to give you an idea of where I'm coming from on this, to hopefully spark some ideas for you to come up with. Assume no limits. Assume nothing is impossible. Okay? And I'm referring to my notes to make sure I don't forget anything important. So assume nothing is impossible because it truly isn't. It truly isn't impossible. You may not be able to see in the moment how it could possibly come together, but that's the beauty of this, is you don't have to worry about that part. You just have to worry about focusing on that dream. Focus on what you think might be impossible, but start to remind yourself that nothing is impossible. That's the key message here. Now, get out a notebook. Open up Notion, whatever method it is, whatever format you prefer to, keep notes. And I want you to write down this question and the answer. Again, what is the one thing you desire more than anything else you desire? Desire is the key component that we're talking about at the very beginning of the book, Think and Grow Rich. That's what drives how we get there, our thoughts can ultimately translate into whatever picture it is we have for what we want our lives to look like. And it's not magic, it's not mystical, it's not some hippie thing, it's real, it's science. It's you give your mind a problem to work on, your mind will go to work on that problem when you're sleeping, when you're not consciously thinking about this stuff. Share this with no one, whatever your goal is, your desire, right? Share it with no one. I gave you a very general version of mine. There's obviously more to it that I won't share with you for the same reasons I'm telling you not to share it with anyone. Share it with no one and look at it daily to remind yourself that everything you do today should be centered around driving you closer to that goal. This will help you stay focused because you can constantly use this as a barometer throughout the day. Ask yourself, whatever you're doing in the moment, stop and ask yourself, is this getting me closer to that goal? If the answer is no, then the next thought should be, okay, how do I wrap this up and then move on to something that does get me closer to that goal? If you stick with a process like that and start training your brain, your thought process to work that way, you will just by force of nature start to carve out, the life that you really want for yourself. And by doing that, it will have a way of excluding all the people, places, and things that you really don't want in your life, the toxic people, the nasty clients, all that stuff. You'll just have no room for it. You won't even have to make an effort to get rid of it. It will have a way of getting rid of itself, because your whole focus will be on filling your life up with everything that you do want and none of the things that you don't. When you think this way, you will start to realize that nothing is impossible.